down there building a plant, a electric car plant, but they're going to displace black people out of the area. What about in New Orleans when they built that chemical plant down there and displaced a whole black community? They did a whole thing on PBS about that. And I even talked about that on the show previously. We keep talking about these particular things. And now, guess what? There are people that are standing and fighting. A lot of those people that led that fight in the situation in Detroit with the highway, and in the situation in New Orleans and these other places where they having these factories built, are older people. But that generation is dying out.
Well, right.
And it's their legacy. It's their legacy that they when you think about the fact that you have somebody who during times of slavery was able to get land, was able to work the land long enough to pass it on for generations upon generations, and then you're possibly going to lose it over some nonsense. It's crazy. And I'll tell you, Daryl, to play the devil's advocate, there are times when you want to get information that you can't get it, because specifically, I'll tell you, even especially during COVID, I figured, okay, we're home and, we have a little bit more free time. I started, pinpointing the issue about scammers on the elderly, because I had some experience, with people that I knew that had been scammed, and, family members and friends of family members, etc. And so I started making phone calls. I started calling my congressman, started calling the public advocate, started writing letters, started doing all of this stuff, and still could not find out how to address this issue, or even get to somebody who could tell me how to address the issue. And that frustrated me, because I'm someone who, I think I'm relatively intelligent. I think I'm relatively forceful in terms of getting stuff done. But I'm going through the avenues of trying to get the information. Imagine the people who aren't even going through, who don't even know it's an issue, who don't even know that they're not supposed to be going through this type of frustration. So if the information isn't accessible to solve a problem before it becomes a major problem, I have a problem with that.
Right.
It's just, we're in a crisis. We're always reacting to crisis. The homeless situation is not new. About property, people charging astronomical rents and all. This is not new. It's been happening for years and years, but we wait until it's the point that it's a huge, huge crisis. And then you have people arguing over, landlords and tenants, and, you don't deserve this increase, and you don't deserve, and everybody's coming up with their extremes. I can't afford to pay this, but you still supposed to give me heat and hot water and gas and electricity and whatever, not looking at the fact that, okay, some of these landlords didn't deal with, they didn't get rent for an extended period of time because of COVID, but they still had to put heat and hot water and, give you heat and hot water. They still had to pay their property taxes. They didn't get mortgage, forgiveness. All of these things occur, but you have people looking at the homeless situation like it's a new problem. So I have a problem with the fact that some of these things are not luxuries. They're situations that are part of everybody's everyday life that they have to deal with. And we don't have the solutions, or we don't have people looking at making solutions before it becomes something that's, unattainable.
Well, what we don't have also is the idea that, like, we just don't have boots on the ground. Like, we're forfeiting every game every fight that we have, we just forfeit. So the idea that, yes, in any of these emergency situations, or any time that we're dealing with this, all of us as engaged people have called, written letters, so on and so forth, talked to X, Y, and Z. The reason why we have to go through the said Byzantine system is because there's 15 of us doing it, and not 2,000 or 5,000 or 20,000 people that were writing those same letters, and that were like, on the phone every day, like, yo, you just got to stop, or we're not going to buy your product, and so on and so forth. And like, and I can only frame it again, since we're using the history as a frame. Frederick Douglass is What Are the Colored People Doing for Themselves? In 1848, you have a situation where has a lament over the idea that out of 500,000 free blacks, less than 2,000 had actually engaged in the abolitionist movement in any way, had bought an abolitionist newspaper, or had gone to any kind of abolitionist function. Yet the idea that he talked about, that, like, you know, when it's just things went, like, in other words, when people want to party, it's like everybody shows up. But then when there's something that's for social uplift, then there's an anemic attendance.